The night had never felt so heavy. James had spent months battling a storm he couldn't escape. His job had disappeared overnight, leaving him with bills piling up and no sense of security. His relationships crumbled one by one, leaving him isolated in a way that felt suffocating. Every day, he carried the weight of disappointment, failure, and shame, pretending to the world that he was fine while his heart screamed in silence. That evening, he found himself alone in his small apartment, staring at the dim ceiling as if it held the answers he desperately needed. The shadows in the room mirrored his despair, dark, quiet, unrelenting. His hands trembled, his chest ached, and tears he had held back for months finally spilled freely. "Why me, God?" he whispered, his voice cracking under the weight of pain. "Why now? What did I do wrong?" There was no response, only the quiet hum of the night. James sank to his knees, not out of ritual, not out of habit, but pure desperation. He closed his eyes, trembling, and prayed, not for riches, not for grand miracles, but for a sign, a whisper, any indication that he was not forgotten. "God, if you're still with me, please show me. I'm lost. I'm broken. I need you." It was a raw, vulnerable plea from a man stripped bare by life, a soul who had nowhere else to turn. That single moment of surrender would become the turning point he didn't yet realize. The room stayed silent, yet something subtle began to stir inside James. He didn't hear an audible voice, but a warmth touched his chest, a soft, almost imperceptible presence that told him he was not alone. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope, like a seed planted in barren soil. That night, he prayed longer than he had in years, letting himself be fully honest with God, expressing fears he hadn't dared speak aloud. He admitted his anger, his grief, his shame, and even his doubts. And then he slept, a sleep that carried a sense of calm, unfamiliar but profoundly comforting. The next morning felt lighter, the air somehow more open, the sun cutting through the blinds in a way that seemed deliberate, almost intentional. On his way out to face another day, James noticed small, seemingly coincidental moments. A stranger holding the door for him, a note left in his mailbox, a quiet song on the radio that mirrored his prayer. Each was subtle, almost unnoticeable, yet collectively, they formed a message. He was seen. He realized that God had begun answering him, not in dramatic miracles, but through gentle, intentional touches woven into his everyday life. These moments were whispers of hope, nudging him forward when he felt most unable to move. James understood, even if he couldn't yet articulate it, that the cracks in his life were not the end. They were openings for God's light to enter. Over the next few days, James noticed the signs becoming more pronounced. He had applied to several jobs weeks ago and had heard nothing, until an email arrived that morning, inviting him to an interview. The timing was impeccable, almost impossible, and it reminded him of the night's prayer. On his way, he stopped at a park and noticed an elderly man feeding birds, drawn inexplicably to sit beside him. James exchanged a few words and realized how wisdom and guidance can arrive from the most ordinary encounters. The man spoke with gentle insight about patience and noticing the gifts God places before us, lessons James desperately needed. Later at the interview, he was surprised when the hiring manager mentioned glowing references from previous colleagues, endorsements he hadn't even requested. James felt a deep, unexplainable calm. Piece by piece, the universe, or God, was aligning to restore what had been broken. The challenges he had endured had sharpened his perspective, given him empathy, and strengthened his resilience. He began to recognize a pattern. Nothing was truly random. Every hardship, every moment of despair, every sleepless night had positioned him for the blessings he now began to receive. These signs, small but powerful, reminded him that God had never abandoned him. As James continued to notice God's work in his life, a deeper transformation took root within him. It wasn't only the external circumstances that were improving, but his internal landscape was shifting profoundly. The anger and bitterness that had once dominated his thoughts began to soften. Where he once saw failure, he started to recognize lessons. Where he once felt shame, he discovered self-compassion rooted in faith. He revisited his Bible, long untouched, and found encouragement in passages that suddenly resonated with urgent clarity. Every encounter, every small victory, felt like a thread weaving his fractured life into a tapestry of hope. Even routine moments, like a kind word from a stranger or a peaceful walk in the morning sun, carried a renewed significance. James realized that God's presence had never left him. It had simply waited for him to surrender fully, to reach the point of complete openness. By embracing vulnerability, he had created space for divine restoration. And in this restoration, he discovered clarity, purpose, and a renewed heart. The transformation was gradual, subtle, but undeniable. Weeks later, James found himself stepping into opportunities he never thought possible. The interview had led to a job offer, one that provided stability and a chance to rebuild his career. But more than professional success, he felt spiritually and emotionally stronger. He approached relationships with a renewed perspective, seeking genuine connections rather than validation or approval. He volunteered in his community, sharing his story and helping others who faced similar struggles. Each act of giving back reinforced the message he had received. God's guidance often arrives quietly, through moments of action and service rather than flashy displays. He also reconnected with old friends and family, finding reconciliation where they had been distanced and hurt. These experiences collectively reshaped his life. The man who had entered that night broken was now a man walking with purpose, hope, and unwavering faith. The despair that once dominated his world had been replaced with trust, gratitude, and a deep understanding of divine timing. James understood now that life's darkest nights often precede the most profound transformations. Looking back, James realized that his life had been fundamentally altered, not by chance, but by intentional grace. He understood that the night he knelt in desperation was the turning point. Every small sign, every unexpected opportunity, every encounter that seemed coincidental was a reminder that God had been present all along. He learned to lean on faith not as a last resort, but as a guiding principle in every aspect of life. He found strength in prayer, clarity in reflection, and joy in recognizing the small blessings that had gone unnoticed for years. His perspective on suffering, loss, and hardship had changed forever. Rather than being consumed by fear or regret, he now saw challenges as moments of preparation, shaping him into a person capable of compassion, resilience, and wisdom. The broken man who had entered that night no longer existed. In his place stood someone renewed, spiritually anchored, and fully aware of God's constant presence. James had left that night forever changed, not just in circumstance, but in soul, mind, and heart.